that, it doesn't say that, it doesn't credit him with any kind of thing.
Because they're gonna.
Right.
Knowing.
I don't know. So that's something we gotta discuss.
And I think people are not gonna be able to have.
Right.
That's just.
Mm-hmm. I think we need one. I mean, I think we need one, but. Mm,
Oh, you mean somebody impartial or just?
The thing is, yeah, I mean, so she's now trying to gather enough information to say she lives there in the homestead.
oh,
Biggest fans of him.
That's one. David?
is he here?
Yes,
Can I
sir.
have one of those?
Oh, I just gave,
Please? I probably had one somewhere from.
are
Thank
you
you.
looking for that or
I
this?
thought that's.
Oh,
what she
no, I
did.
was gonna grab one from there. I'm not
Sure she
sweating
was.
yet. But I
What's
needed
today's?
this.
28.
And let me tell you, it's like crazy.
I think, don't we have? to
28,
do- Do we
right?
have to go to 6:30?
Yes. Oh, I don't know. What time does it say?
I-
It says 6:30.
It said.
6:33? Okay,
Tony's
Thank you.
next.
As evident by.
Okay.
By who?
That's what it was.
I said 6:31.
We said 6:30.
I mean, how do they know that this clock isn't fast or slow?
No, when was that?
Yeah.
Right there.
They're-
Ah,
6:33, right?
I shouldn't say that. Somebody probably is.
is this still you or Mrs. Ryder? Is this still you or is this from last time? Your name is on here. Okay, that's what I was wondering. Is it a carryover? Okay.
I thought it was from every other meeting. We just mimeograph it off. Denise has got the mimeograph machine at home.
Those old ones that ruined your clothes?
Yeah, oh, what a smell.
And the funny thing is, I never had a sense of smell. And
Smell that.
no, and kids used to get new ones and they'd all be go, and I'd go, when I was in
And that
school
was-
and I would,
Figure it out.
I didn't know what they were smelling the paper
It
for.
was,
But,
That was even before COVID, right?
oh yeah, I never had a sense of smell.
At least you had an excuse.
My mother's house was on fire twice and I didn't know.
Because you just did it.
I also,
That was the thing that scared me. COVID, I mean, coffee smells the same as. And like dog in them.
when they asked me, do you have,
6:32.
do you have a sense of smell?
Countdown.
Do you, can you
Countdown.
smell? I'd always say, yep.
Everybody
'cause I
ready?
don't.
We're gonna go live. In
Oh,
five.
we got a person.
I thought it
Four.
was a minute, 6:33, right?
Okay,
Yeah,
never
we got
mind.
1
Denise said
minute,
no.
1 minute.
6:32. Yeah. 6:33.
They're on.
Go.
Ready, set, go.
Good, good. Let me ask. Mrs. Dillon, are you set? Are you set? Perfect. Thank you. Good evening. I'm going to call the May 28th Town Council. It is the 28th Town Council meeting to order. If everyone would please stand to pledge the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and with liberty and justice for all. I do have a couple of announcements. Number one, tomorrow night is the last night for the Homestead Act, that the hours will be extended. So if you haven't done so, please do so. The other thing I wanted to, yesterday, the parade went very well. We had a big turnout, a lot of participants. Mr. Fortier thanked me, but I also want to extend a thank you to Tammy Steinkamp for, she really helped out a lot too. She wasn't at the meetings, but she, as always, pitched
She's
in.
got plans.
Yes,
She's
she
got
has
For
plans.
next year. too.
She has big plans for next year.
Yes.
I also want to state that I did receive an email from Chris from technology here, apologizing for the disruption in our meeting last week. So that there was some technical difficulties and miscommunications. I responded that I appreciated the email. That being said, public comment. Mrs. Ryder, you know the story, the routine. It's not on yet.
Lynn Ryder, Burgess Road. This is also on the agenda, but I figured I'd just get this out of the way. And it would be the land trust properties. I went and I looked in the economic development strategy plan that Camoin provided for us, and there was a whole page dedicated to the land trust and how to encourage expansion of outdoor recreational uses, promote the existing assets, including the highest point, the many trails, the land, by the land trust, update them. Expand the local trail and outdoor recreation network, look into horseback riding, mountain bike riding, fat biking, whatever that may be, snowshoeing, disc golf, and other activities. And generally, it says the Foster Land Trust is uniquely situated in the town's economic development landscape. It can acquire, hold, and manage property and determine the level of development on its properties in order to help preserve the town's natural resources. That is in our strategy plan. I don't know if you got to see this. It was in something called, Rhode Island Now, no, NRI Now.
Mhm.
And it's, did you see it?
Mhm.
Well, anybody didn't. I was a teacher.
Hold on.
No,
No, it
I'm
doesn't.
sorry.
Thank you.
It's the old fashioned, shoot.
Chris and I can share if that's the
Okay.
only one you have.
Yeah, I've seen it.
You've had, okay.
Oh, I don't know. And you'll notice Gloucester is doing exactly what our strategy, economic development strategy was recommending. And they are, I'm sorry, read that. It was to encourage people to make use of the more than 2,500 acres of the land trust by construction of mountain bike trails. And they've got, much like our Spencer property and our Grass property, they have a pond, they have a very diverse habitat. They're working with a couple of local artists to bring children and art and nature together. And I think the biggest thing is that it's all part of their plan to promote the town as an eco-tourist destination where people come to town to enjoy our amazing natural beauty and activities and hopefully discover other parts of the town. I think that taking away or redirecting any of the monies to the land trust is very short-sighted. It would be like finding a minnow, okay, and you're starving to death. So you have a choice. You can eat the minnow or you can use it to catch a larger fish. If you eat the minnow, that's it, it's gone. And basically this money is a minnow compared to our budget. The budget, this money from the land trust monies isn't going to solve any economic problems. It may put out a teeny tiny little fire, but it is not going to solve the big systemic problem. And I think it is short-sighted to take away an avenue that maybe we could promote the town in a very rural, resident-friendly way. And to take that away, because that's costing more and more money for what you might get, what, $30,000-$40,000 a year? That is really nothing out of a $16 million budget. Okay, that's the end of my sermon for today.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Moving on to consent agenda.
Make a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Old business, police station update. We met last Wednesday, discussed a few things on how to move forward. We're meeting again this Wednesday to discuss the next steps as far as getting this moving. As I had reached out to Rouse Engineering,
That was
told
the
them
old-
that, right, that was the old engineering or the architect. We had voted at the previous meeting that we were not going to stay with them.
Yeah.
So I called and let them know that we were not staying with them because the prices were just too high for us to continue. He was very nice about it. I thanked him for being patient with us, for the multiple changes we've made, et cetera. We had some large prints, large building, when we had the larger building.
Mhm.
And then they had stamped that, and then we shrunk the building. And they gave us prints on that, but they're not stamped. So I asked if we could use, well, I asked if we owned any of those prints or designs, and they said we did not, but that we could utilize the smaller building. And what we have there, it's not stamped, it doesn't, it's a very basic. So we would have to move forward on that. So we're meeting tomorrow to discuss that and how we're going to move forward with that.
So we would take that design, which
Mhm.
is not stamped,
Right,
and have to pay another architect to redo it. But I mean, they've got the thing, they've got the design,
right.
but we're gonna have to pay
We're not
them
sure about
to
that yet.
design it again.
No,
We're
it's
not
not
sure
designed.
yet.
We're not just redesigning. The building is
I
what
get
the
it,
building is.
but if it's not stamped,
Right,
this
we have to get
company
somebody
is
to
gonna,
Rouse is not stamping it.
right.
Their name is not on it.
So
We
another,
can utilize that as a jumping off point. How we're going to do that has not been determined
and
yet.
that's tomorrow night.
And we're going to be discussing it tomorrow night, 5 o'clock here. So, any further questions or discussion? Okay, thank you. Moving on, land trust charter amendment. We had discussed that before. I'm glad you all could make it back. So Linda, come on up.
Before I present what the land trust had determined at our May meeting, I'd like to have you clarify the agenda item. Because it seems to say land trust charter amendment,
Discussion action.
discussion action, but the land trust charter amendment, I don't believe is what we were discussing. We were discussing the.
Right. We're not
the
looking to
conveyance
change your
tax.
charter.
Right.
We're looking.
So I
at
just wanted that
town,
clarified
right.
before I speak, that we're
Right.
talking
We're
about
not-
what we
We're
initially.
not looking to change your charter. We're looking at the town charter and how to proceed with that.
Okay, so you're looking specifically at under the financial procedures, so it would be section 1017 is what you're
Is that what it
considering.
is?
Yeah.
I'll take your word on that.
Thank you. So this is the response of the Foster Land Trust from our meeting of May 14th. And it's the response to the town council and the state. The Foster Land Trust recognizes that its responsibility is to the people of Foster to manage the funds they have granted us to best protect and provide access to the lands we manage for them. It is not the land trust's responsibility to balance the town council's budget. Therefore, the Land Trust Board cannot support any change to the existing charter for which a clear majority of voters have expressed their continued trust and support through their votes and through survey responses. In addition, charter review committees continue to recommend that changes regarding the land trust should not be pursued. By continuing to preserve Foster's rural character, the Foster Land Trust attracts new residents and promotes the increasing tax base of the town. The careful management of the funds entrusted to the land trust has ensured the ability of the trust to maintain and improve trust properties with trails, bike and equestrian access, parking, and also to cover major expenses such as the current restoration of the Dunbar Dam. The Land Trust has been able to accumulate its funds over 24 years of careful management due to its independence from the vagaries of the town's economy and politics. After 2 decades of acquiring land and maintaining it through volunteer efforts, the Foster Land Trust is now putting those funds to work through hiring maintenance workers, buying necessary equipment, and improving and restoring infrastructure. In these ways, the Land Trust Board can, within our charter, best aid the future financial well-being of Foster. I want to thank you for your questions that you had us respond to, and this has been our decision. I do have this if
Perfect.
you
If
would
you
like.
can give it to Mrs. Dillon. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Linda. I will open it up to the council if you have any questions or concerns that you want to bring up at this time.
I have a
You have to
concern.
turn it on and
I have a concern. That's for Julia. I've been approached and in discussions with the state on some of my property, Nature Conservancy and DEM. Not sure of the connection, but I think it's appropriate to disclose it in case I have to recuse myself.
I think that's a more detailed conversation you and I need to have.
Okay.
That's not an answer I can provide right now with just that little bit of information.
That's all I have.
is there anyone else that has any comments at this time?
I will.
It is on.
It is on.
It's on.
Mhm.
I know, it's hard to tell. Sometimes yes, it's a dim light. So I looked at a couple of different towns and how their land trusts are funded. Most recently, I looked at West Greenwich, which is comparable to us. And I spoke to the town manager, and the way they fund the land trust is the land trust gets the first $25,000 of conveyance tax. And then after that 25,000, the town gets the rest. That's how they've been doing it. I forget what year they instituted that, but that's how they've been doing it. And I look at these numbers, I mean, 2023, 70,000, 148, 60,000 in 2022. 2021 was 74,000, 2020 was 50,000 change. I'm rounding it up. In 2019, 47,000, 2018, 47,000, 2017, 56,968, so say 57,000. 2016, over 40,000. 2015, over 27,000, and 2014, over 24,000. So I get what Lynn was saying with, the consultants that we had and their direction for certain things. But I've also seen other people ask specifically to the fire departments, someone on the fire department, what is changing the charter going to do if the town receives another 20 or 30,000? And my answer to that is, well, then we fund the incentive plan for the firefighters. It is. I mean, somebody asks, what is that? It's not going to make a big difference in a $16 million budget, except that money could fund the incentive, which we approved. It was approved at the financial town meeting. So my opinion, I like the West Greenwich model where they do the first 25,000 to the land trust, so they're guaranteed 25,000 and then the rest to the town. Lynn wants to speak.
1 second.
Okay, sorry.
Anyone else from the council like to make a comment at this time? But you're not on.
I'll ask it after.
Okay. Mrs. Ryder.
Lynn Ryder, Burgess Road. Anybody who's had any kind of work done, particularly when you're trying to turn not virgin forest, but almost virgin forest into something usable, It is extremely expensive. Now, I know the land trust just put in some parking lots. I don't know the cost of those parking lots altogether, how much that was, but I'm sure it was considerable. If you're talking about doing mountain bike trails and things like that, all of this is very costly and it's getting more and more costly. And I think it would be unfortunate to pit two volunteer groups against each other saying, well, we're going to take your money or you're going to take my money. That money just isn't that big a deal in the size budget we have. I'm sure that it can be, quote, found, or perhaps if we start using what we've got and promoting it, none of this is going to happen overnight. But $20,000, $30,000 is not going to save the town of Foster in their budget. It didn't cost the town, this costs the town nothing. This is the one thing in town that costs the town nothing and that we can promote and we can use. Thank you.
Lynn, I don't know if I should ask you or somebody from the land trust, how much are these trails being used? Do we have any kind of, well, okay, so I'm going behind you. Do we have any kind of idea of how often these trails are used? I mean, I've been on the North-South Trail. I've done that. Do we have any idea of the usage of them? I'm not saying they shouldn't be maintained. I'm just asking about the use of those trails. And I'll say this, maybe not be popular, but as opposed to the use of our volunteers. It's just a question.
Do you have a response, Linda, or anybody from, I've walked the trails and there is no sign in or sign out. So I'm assuming you don't have a,
Right. I'm assuming the same.
No, through the Rhode Island Land Trust Council, we can put trail data collectors on trails to see the use of trails. Trail use increased during COVID dramatically.
Yes, of course.
And
We
now,
had anything else to do?
now maybe it has gone down a lot. I know at the Spencer property, trail usage was up after a Providence Journal article on the Spencer property, and they were, you know, that parking lot was more than full after that. And so the more it's promoted, the more use we have. I always see people when I've gone onto trails, but I have not counted them. And as to the use of ambulance corps and fire and all, there's no way I could compare it to that. That's a necessary item for the town.
It was a
to have.
comparison that somebody from a fire
Yeah.
department made.
Land trust is recreational. It isn't,
Right.
it is not the same as the ambulance and the fire department services or the police. I mean, those are necessary items for the town.
And I only brought that
The
up.
land trust is recreational, and
I-
we're trying to improve and increase the recreational capacities for these places. There had been problems because we didn't have parking access, and that has gotten improved, and that was with the assistance of a grant as well. It is not complete. The grant is not complete, so I can't give you an exact figure on that as yet.
And I understand that,
Yeah.
and I brought that up,
Mhm.
because members of the fire departments looking for incentives
Mhm.
had actually gotten behind the land trust and said, if you take this money from them, what good does that do
Mhm.
in our budget? And like, to me, we had to dig to find money to fund their incentive.
I realize.
I mean,
Yes.
they're two totally separate
Right.
things. It's just that we have limited funds
Mhm.
to do this. It was brought up by.
No,
somebody at
I
fire
understand their question. I understand.
And this is nothing
responses,
against
but it's,
it. For my part, it's nothing against the land trust and anything you guys
I'm
do,
just
you
saying
do a great job.
we can't compare land trust
No, I
recreational
understand.
activities to the
It's apples and
necessary
oranges.
things.
It definitely is. It's just dollars.
Mhm.
It's
Is that
dollars.
good?
Thank you. Linda.
Thank you, Linda.
Dennis, you want to say something? State your name and
Dennis
address.
Stellian, South Billingsley Road.
Can you put the?
Yes,
mic
I
down?
will.
Thank you.
To respond to your comments
Yep.
about West Greenwich.
Mhm.
They have about 50% of their property is in open space in that town. That's a lot. That's half their town.
They do
And
have a lot.
the reason they're probably splitting it with the town is because obviously they don't want them to purchase any more land or to have any more land because there goes your tax base. But remember, they've got 50% of their property. That's one of the few towns that has that much land
Mhm.
in open space.
They do.
The other question I have is, and you answered it, is what would you do with the money if you got it from the land trust?
I just, yeah, I gave
And
you
you
that
made the
answer.
comment about that. Well,
Yes.
what I saw in going through the financial statement for the meeting we had, the yearly financial statement,
Yes.
that pay raises were given out to in the amount of about $30,000.
Can I respond to that while we're chatting? Okay, so our employees got a 3% increase in their pay. Inflation is 8%. So 3% for them is really nothing.
The point being is that if you get approximately 30,000 from us, say you do your 50%
Yes.
split, 50-50.
Mhm.
So we'd be paying, no offense to anybody, we wouldn't be helping fire station, we'd be helping to give raises to the town. Pure and simple.
It depends on what, it depends.
30,000 is gonna go somewhere.
It's
gonna go to raises.
It
Second
depends,
thing,
it could be, or it
Yes.
depends on what bucket it's
I'm
going in.
just making my view known.
But I will tell you that a lot of our raises that are given out are contractual. We have unions and we have no choice but to give those raises. So they are coming out.
But that's where the money would go. It's not gonna go to the fire department.
We can argue that. We
Yes.
can argue that.
I think it goes into a pool.
It
Dennis,
does.
honestly.
Exactly, but
It
that-
goes into a
It
pool
does.
and then, so it's, you
I
can't say it goes
understand.
in this bucket or that bucket. It
That-
goes into a
That's
pool.
I know.
my point.
Yeah.
But to look at it.
Right.
how
You're
other
looking
people
at it one way, Heidi was
participate,
looking at, right.
Right. The other thing is, to not pick out any departments. Some of the departments, in my view, are bloated. They have a page and a half of line items, continued line items, and we get all the way up to $16 million for our budget for this town. And I look at those and I go, do we really need 100, $100 grand, 200 grand for sand and salt when they used it 6 times last year? Does the money ever come back?
Kelly
To
can
the
speak to
town.
that.
Anyway, these are just my thoughts that I
Mm.
wanted to
Thank you,
give
Dennis.
to you. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Dennis.
Dennis.
Cheryl, are you ready yet or no?
well,
You're not on, you're not on.
I just wanted to know where the council was thinking the cutoff would be, what the rate percentage would be.
I hadn't thought of a percentage yet. I'll speak first. How's that?
Sure.
I don't think 50-50.
Okay.
I think that would be too devastating to the land trust. I haven't given it any thought beyond that.
Is that something we would decide tonight?
And that's up to the pleasure of the council.
Okay.
I mean, I
Good.
can't say,
Cheryl, so I like the way West Greenwich did it. They get $25,000 guaranteed, the first 25,000 of the conveyance tax. And if it doesn't meet 25,000, like in 2014, we would have to make it up somewhere to give them the rest. So in 2014, they got 24,000. In 2015, they got 27,000. So that would be 20, if like the way West Greenwich does it, it would be 25,000 to them, $2,042 to
Okay.
us. In 2016, they got 40,000.
Yeah.
And this all depends on the market and the building and,
Right.
right? And
Yeah,
which
I see the
fluctuates,
figures, all right.
right? So in 2016, there was 40,000. So in the case of West Greenwich, they would get 25, we would get 15.
Okay.
But then there are years where it is larger. In 2021, 74,000. So if the town, I mean, the land trust got 25,000, which they could obviously operate on in 2014, 2015. If they had 25,000, then we would have 49,000 for the town.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah,
Heidi.
I mean, and another point that I made before, and I don't know that people liked it, was every other department in this town comes to us with a budget. The fire departments, every fire department does. The now EMS comes to us with a budget. Sue Dillon comes to us with her budget for the town clerk's office. We have the police budget, we have the DPW budget, we have human resources budget, every other recreation, every single
I know, I sit
department.
here with you. I know this.
Every department in the town comes to us with a budget and we fund it.
Yeah.
So if they came to us, Sue Dillon, what was your budget this year? Okay, don't even give it.
684, 400,
684 for that, so that was your budget, and I know it was bottom line because we cut you as far as we could. So if you came and you said 750,000, and we just went, okay. And she only needed that much, and then, you know, there's that extra. She comes to us with a budget for her needs, for what we need.
I understand. I just want to know.
I know, and I'm
where
not
you get-
slamming the land trust. I'm not. I'm just, like, my point is, why is this different than every other budget in this town? Every other budget for every other department, quasi-governmental, the libraries, everything is a budget. This is different.
Mhm.
You had a question?
Yeah, my question is when did the chart, when was the deal struck? It wasn't while I was.
I think it
here.
was 1974, wasn't it?
So this deal's been going on
It
for
has.
a long time.
It's been a very long
Why
time,
wasn't it changed before?
because nobody,
It has
Nobody on the
been,
council up until 15 years ago thought to change it.
I will, once I see a lot of hands coming up. I would just like to ask a couple of things. It has been brought to charter review committees in the past,
it has.
and they have determined not to put it forward.
Mhm.
I also, does the state, Linda, does the state have an overall, as far as what each individual cities and towns are required to give to the individual land trust? They all 39 cities and towns, I'm assuming, have land trusts. Some
Yes.
bigger than others.
Yes.
Uh,
Some are not, some.
Private, okay. So is there a general consensus on how much from the state? Do they regulate? Like, you have to give this amount of money, or this is how it works, you all get the sales tax conveyance fee?
I believe the state does not have a regulation on that. It was put up to each individual town
Okay.
for a vote, yeah. I believe the town of Foster voted for that 100% at I believe 74% of the votes were in favor of that. And of course, at that time, the conveyance tax wasn't what it
Is
is right.
today.
in this
And the
time.
economy was a little
Right,
different back
right.
then.
Yeah, but,
Interesting
mean,
that
the lowest year was $900 for the entire year.
I just find it interesting that the state said, we'll leave it up to the towns when they
But-
inflict everything else on us.
It is, but,
But
what-
no, they didn't tell the towns how to fund.
Right.
it.
Right,
so what year, Linda, do you know when you got $900?
No, I'd have to go back. I have a list somewhere. of
You have
every single
no
year's
idea.
conveyances, But
So
it was in the early
Yeah,
years.
probably 30, yeah,
It
a
was
long
in the
time ago.
early years. And it was probably
I see
during one
you.
of the times when houses
see.
were selling.
I
Okay,
gotta get my list going. 1 second, I need to get my list going. Kelly, Lynn, I see Grant. Okay, Kelly, I'll go with you first, then Lynn, then Grant.
Okay, so what happened is where they're receiving the 20s, the state, since I've been here, I want to say might have changed it twice. The percentage of allocation and whatever, and the percentage that they get and the fees itself. So when,
The
as they,
state gets money from,
yes. They don't get 100%. This is a percentage of what we collect. And we're allowed to keep. The state gets a nice little chunk, to
How
be clear
much?
about this. More than us, I think,
well,
more than us.
A
So
bit
if-
advanced tax?
in a year that
more
we.
than the land
and-
trust gets?
Yes, and in a month that we get 13,000, we'll
One-
get
one
maybe,
second. Linda, what?
yes, the state gets,
Like 50 and they.
yes. So in the month that we collected 13,000 something, we transferred about 62 to the land trust and the rest all went to the state. 7,000 something went to the state.
Do they
Kelly.
raise it from year to year?
They've changed it a couple times, but I think that's part of the reason that they used to collect 24 and plus the property values were so much lower. So for years, in the first part of my career here, you're right, you were collecting closer to 20,000 for sure. But in the last 10 years, you haven't collected anything less than closer to 50, like 47 a couple years and all the rest. So the 8-year average is actually $58,000. So, and the thing is too, regardless of what you decide that they need or you need, I think the methodology that you're using to justify it is a little skewed in the way that we're not taking to give to a specific thing. All of our revenue, I understand. your
I was
point,
just
and I
giving an
understand their
example.
points,
Yes.
but the whole, it's just kind of like when we rented the Nike site, that was now $18,000 that we didn't have to come up with somewhere else.
Right.
And we're basically using all of these additional revenue sources to kind of come up with a larger value. We're band-aiding everything together to come up with a larger value, and all the rest is tax collections. So the more you can raise in other ways, the less you're gonna raise in tax collections. As far as raises or incentives, those things that are conceptual ideas that you're gonna vote for regardless. And then you're either gonna raise to 4% or whatever you're gonna raise taxes to collect, or you're gonna have to try to cut somewhere to make the budget balance. But it's not, we're collecting this to give raises. You are giving raises next year.
Exactly. That was my point.
Undeniably, because you're contractually obligated to do
Yes.
so. So it's really not this for that. We're trying to find other revenue sources and we're very, very limited in our revenue sources. In fact, we have like virtually none. So we have meals and beverage tax. We get a hotel tax that we've collected like less than $200 for the year. We get meals and beverage. We don't even get much in that, maybe $20,000. All the rest are results of taxes. So we get motor vehicle phase out from the state, but again, related to taxes. Tangible taxes are going to start reimbursing us for, again, related to taxes. So the outside revenues are police fines and fees, recording fees, permitting for building fees, and pretty much probate fees, very, very small, no offense. But that's it. So we're trying to increase our other options for raising revenue as a whole so that it offsets somewhat in taxation, because even at 4%, we're barely making it. Every single renewal I received, you were there today, right? And I was throwing a little fit because every time we get a new renewal for maintenance fees, it's 5% increase. Or 6% increase. Well, we're not able to get that funding. So if our utility bills are increasing at 6, 7, 8%, if our maintenance fees are raising at those, if our insurance rates, which are part of Sue's $680,000 budget, is $100,000. And now we've added a rec site and we're going to add a new police station, hopefully. That's not going to decrease our insurance policy. So all of these things are increasing at a rate greater than we can increase taxes. So everybody's looking to me to like the great is find it somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I keep hearing. Find it somewhere else. So I'm saying this is a revenue that legally the town is allowed to keep, except for the charter. So if they could find a way to keep some of it, maintain your properties, help. You need all this. You definitely need money. So to find the balance, because little by little, if you not attack, but if you attach certain revenues or you go out and seek, like, you're not gonna solve your problem. Everybody's gonna get more commercial property. It's not gonna solve your problem in the next 24 months. It might help little by little and it might sustain you for a period of time, but you can't do it with one revenue resource.
Hmm.
You need to go after a bunch, and then a bunch actually creates the 100,000 or 150,000 annual. Over the last less than 10 years, about 10 years, the land trust has gotten $500,000. You're able to, in new revenue, you're able to keep your investment income, you're able to keep all of this. So in turn, over the same period of time, the town would have, at 50%, the town would have been able to raise, to keep 250. I don't think that what we're talking about is to collect this money so we can start a new program. It's to collect this money so that you can live within your budgets, because at 4% taxation limits increases of when you can only raise taxes 4%. And taxation is only maybe 80% of your total budget, you can really only raise taxes, raise your overall spending by like less than 3%, and nothing's going up less than 3%.
So Kelly, to be clear, I was just giving an example of a question that was,
I know
of a
that.
question
I
that
know
was
that.
asked. What
Okay.
what is $20,000 or $30,000 going to do on a $60 million
That's
budget?
less that we have to collect through taxation.
Exactly. And that was my point. Well,
100%.
and that was what I said. Well, another 20,000 or 30,000 could have funded that incentive program.
Right.
Yes, it could have funded the raises. It could have funded something.
It's funding something, but the budget is.
Right.
A whole.
And I
we're
wasn't
trying-
talking about
Oh, I
anything
know.
specific. I wasn't saying let's cut the land trust
Right.
money so we can give incentives to the fire department, though
Right.
I think it's worth it.
And
um,
Ken was giving an example as well. It's just that
Yes, exactly,
it's a pool. We're piecing together a larger source of revenue. So
exactly.
if we could get more money through a municipal court eventually, if we could get more money through, again, renting of town's property like we
Right.
do with the Nike
Nike
site.
site.
If we
Mhm.
can, and all of these pieces of revenue we're hoping to get us closer to where we need to be,
Mm.
just to be clear.
Thank you. Mrs. Ryder. You're on my list. You're after Grant now.
How many you got?
Hey, Lynn Ryder, Burgess Road. I believe the reason that the land trust doesn't come to the town with the budget is because the land trust is not asking the town for money. All right, they get zero tax dollars. And as far as the 25,000 for West Greenwich must not do anything to be able to survive on that amount of money. I mean, either that or they have an army of 25-year-old volunteers who can do everything. I mean, I can't imagine it. Our land trust is facing, I don't know if it's a $300,000 or $400,000 bill on a dam. Where would that money come from without the land trust? From the town? That hurts. That hurts a lot. Again, I think it is short-sighted to take the one entity that does not require one penny from the town and has the potential to benefit the town in so many ways. And I know that recreation has been, I wish Tammy was here because I know they've been utilizing parts of the trails and doing something with them. I'm not sure what. But you say, well, how many people use it? Well, it's going to take money to put the big signage out there that they need. It's going to take money to send out either trail maps. I know they've done it in the past, but you've really got to promote it, maybe get more articles in the paper or something. Foster doesn't have a lot, but they do have land, they do have trails, and that is something that we should capitalize on. And if you start cannibalizing it now, it's never going to end. Nobody's ever going to put it back. It's not going to happen. Thank you.
Lynn, I've got a comment or a question for Lynn. So Lynn, when these conveyance fees come in to the town, if we weren't giving them to the land trust, where would they go? Into the general fund, right? And then they are taxpayer dollars.
What?
The conveyance fees.
Mrs. Ryder, I would need you to come up. just so that we can hear you.
Yeah, I understand, but that is not people's taxes. Yes, it would be like, yes, the money from fines for driving too fast. It is the money for, permits for for the whatever, but this was state. This was state mandated. State already, you said, takes over 50% of this money. I really think you should think twice about doing this to the land trust because they need more and more funds, not less and less if they are going to, if they want to do equestrian, which I think would be a wonderful idea. You've got to make giant parking lots. You've got to trim trees up high. You've got to do all of this other stuff. And they're starting to get newer, younger members who are enthusiastic. And I think this could go a long way. But, as I know at the last meeting, you said you would put as much promotional stuff out there about why it is necessary before if it becomes a ballot vote. And I would hope the land trust and everybody else puts out as much out there why it is a bad idea.
You're reading my notes.
But my point, and Kelly, correct me if I'm wrong, is that if these funds were not, all of these funds or the percentage that we get to keep was not going to the land trust, then it's going to the general fund and is taxpayer dollars, isn't it?
It is, and
Okay.
a lot of communities.
I just wanted
they
to
don't
clarify that it
delegate
is-
their
it is
conveyance fees to the
taxpayer.
Land trust,
It's-
different communities do different
I've
things.
got two conversations going.
Yep,
So
sorry.
like in Richmond, for example, I believe in communities that regularly bond, you'll see a portion of their bonds that will go to open space and land trusts like that, but we don't regularly bond. We've done it like once in 15 years. And before that, we didn't even have a bond rating, so I don't believe it's ever gone out for debt. But in other communities, you'll see an open space portion of their bonds when they go out. I believe that's how Richmond funds their open space in their land trust. Other communities do give a percentage of their conveyance fees. Some people just give them budgets. Everybody does something slightly different. So it's not tied specifically to the conveyance fees to go to land trust to answer that question as well earlier.
I see, Mrs. Rad. Nope, not yet. You're on my list. Grant, you're next.
So I don't know if this is a great comparison, but Dennis mentioned that about, 50% of the land in West Greenwich is in open space. And Foster, about 25% of the land is in farm forest and open space. And I don't know what percentage of residents are on the elderly and disabled tax freeze. So from a standpoint of property being property taxes going to the town, West Greenwich and Foster might be pretty similar. I don't know if applying West Greenwich's method would make sense in Foster, but I primarily wanted to just ask, when do we plan on forming a charter review committee? Because
We don't
We don't
have
have
to.
to.
Every 5 years we do, but these are things that we're discussing are things that have been brought up by previous charter review committees. Actually, the last one we did was some things that were brought up. Those are the things that we had been discussing.
They don't have to.
Right, the
We-
town council can put it on at any time without a charter review commission.
We only have to have a charter review commission every 5 years.
Right.
And
okay,
it hasn't been 5 years yet.
so what I'm reading is, and that might be the way it's interpreted, but it says the town council shall every 5th year after the adoption of the charter or more often, if it's deemed necessary, appoint a charter review committee. So is what you're saying that because a previous charter review committee made these recommendations, you can bring them back within those
Right.
5 years? Okay.
That's
Thank
my understanding. Thank you, Grant.
I think we could bring anything forward, couldn't we? We don't have to go by past ones.
No, we've brought things forward in the past.
Right.
Well, I should say. We have. Go ahead. I'll
Hmm.
be quiet. Linda, you're next on my list.
I didn't say this before, Linda Tibbetts, 16 Mill Road. And chairperson of the Foster Land Trust. So it's a couple of corrections. We do present a budget every year
Mhm.
and that's part of our charter. And our operational budget is voted on at the
Financial town
At
meeting.
the financial town meeting. However, it is money that we have, so it's not coming out of that current year.
It's kind of a different, right.
It is a different.
And
Yes,
and we
it's-
also present our capital budget
Mhm.
for what we have, and we also by charter, by decision of the town council, we have to have our own insurance.
Mhm.
We have to pay for our own attorney fees, and we pay for everything, so we try not to have the town pay for anything. Taking away our funding might mean that the town would have to cover any expenses that the land trust had. And you never know what type of expense is going to come up. The other one, Kelly was talking about, Ms. Ross was talking about the monies that the land trust have saved, and this has been over 24 years. And it's wrong to say that because we have invested 500-some thousand dollars, that was from conveyance tax. It was not. Some was grant money, some was forest product money. There were lots of different things over all these years, and a lot is the investment, because we've been very diligent in how we want to save the town people's money. for
The
use.
500,000 I was referring to is the amount you've collected over the last 10 years. I'm sorry if that was a misunderstanding.
Okay,
Mhm.
because what we have in savings
Is also 500,000.
is not, right, but it is not from the conveyance tax. That's money that we've invested and collected. So what we have in savings is not all the money that we've received from conveyance.
I
tax.
wasn't really discussing that. I was talking about
Okay.
the 10 years.
All right,
So can I just ask for some clarification, then I guess both of you would need to voice in here. So the money that you have listed here, Kelly, is the 499,176. That's monies that they have gotten from the conveyance fee.
It's all money that.
But you're talking about, it just so happens that it's similar
That-
amounts.
right,
That you
every,
have,
every
right,
year
okay.
we're not purchasing property.
Right.
Every year there is some left, and our goal had been to invest such that it would be like an endowment for a
Yeah.
nonprofit, so that we could run our operational expenses totally out of
Right.
investment income. And it's a
I just wanted
security
some
thing.
clarification that,
Yeah.
yes, you have that,
Right,
but
I
this
was
is what.
talking about something else, but I do have a question based on what you just said.
sure.
Where did you get the 500,000 if it wasn't from the conveyance fees that you've amassed
we have saved.
over a great period of time?
Yes, we
that's
have
in the
some,
savings
some,
account? Yeah.
there was an initial grant.
Mhm.
And that was for maintenance, and that was invested. We have invested in municipal bonds for many years that have been, that have given, so a lot of it is income from the investments that we have done
Right.
over all these years. And,
Was any
forest products.
sale of-
witch hazel.
Which is.
sale of property?
Sale of property, I forgot, there have been,
Um,
the most recent one was in about 2013. That
Right,
was
I only
the town
remember
council.
Oh, so a long time ago.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
when I was. on the
And,
council.
and it was one that was, it no longer was profitable for the town to have as public recreation, because you couldn't actually access it on the right of.
I remember,
Okay.
Very
I
easily.
remember, because you had to come to the council.
And someone,
Yeah.
someone offered to purchase it, so that money was also invested.
Right.
That's,
But
that's the only piece of property.
the
I-
money that you use to invest in the CDs, a good portion of that does, like all of your investments comes from the money, the primary source of your revenue is conveyance fees.
Not
do
at the
earn
beginning when we
interest in-
started our investments.
I'm only really referring to like the last 10 or 15 years, because I don't know before that, and I didn't do a deep dive. I'm just
Mm.
saying that your I wasn't even referring to your 500,000 that's in the
It's-
bank. I was really referring to in the last 10 years, you've
Okay,
actually
yeah.
collected $500,000 in
Yeah,
conveyance.
most of it in the last 5.
And originally, you're right,
Yeah.
you were only collecting 2025 and then Walt was a big like, proponent of like, the witch hazel and investments, and he really did struggle to like maintain and bring your balances up, and Dennis is doing the same thing.
Right.
So I totally get that. And, yes,
And
but in 10 years, you've collected 500,000, so that's the 500 I was referring to, but I do understand that when you're investing money, you're not investing money that you
Right.
got from a grant, you're investing money that you got through conveyance fees and witch hazel in your products. So basically, that is the majority of your base.
And this year's capital request is for $285,000, most of which is for,
The dam,
right.
the Dunbar Dam.
So that is something that has to be addressed, whether it was town property or not town property. The town also
And I
has
will say
dams
thank you,
that
Linda.
have to work on that, so. So that's right there, that's half of what we already have invested that's
Mm.
going to be spent.
I mean, if you were to look at your financial statements from 10 years ago, I don't think you had half of that. So I mean, it is,
Yeah.
you do receive more than you actually use in the course of a.
Right. Except
Period.
when something like this happens,
Yes.
when we have.
So
to do
I mean,
that.
everybody needs fund balance, but to put some kind of comparison to it, your fund balance is currently $500,000 as of 2013. Ours was $1.5 million,
2023 or 2013?
2023. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
you said 13, okay.
So in 2023, your fund balance was a third of what the town's
Yes,
was.
but more
in
than half
total.
of that is going to be spent. And it's good that we have the save. because
Right.
Then there'd be a major problem.
So, and again, like, I don't feel
Thank you.
anyway, I'm just trying to get you.
Mhm.
And I just wanted you to know that that money isn't
Right,
just
you've
sitting there. It was
invested.
there for emergencies and
I know, right.
it's going to be used for that.
Mrs. Rao.
Thank you, Linda.
My name is Anna Erau. I live on Barkham Road in Central Park. First of all, I want to thank the Land Trust for having made the money over the years. They have saved their money and the land was given to them or they bought it. So they were very good money managers because they have the money, but we should not take it because every landowner who gives up some property to the land trust does not want it to be spent to somebody else. The thing is, we live in Foster because the air is clean, we have clean water. We are like to live here, I assume, because most of us have moved here, right? So we should keep it like this. We should not make it like West Greenwich or anything like this. And we need to keep the land trust here because that is the watershed. So if we want money, we have to go after the state to give us money because we keep our area clean and safe. And that is where we should get the money.
I'd love to.
So just to be clear, none of us, I'll speak for all of us, nobody is trying to take any money that they have and that they've saved and they've been good stewards of. Nobody's trying to take any of
Maybe
them.
Just like the $25,000 to pay for the EMTs, which I think everybody needs.
And-
an
and-
EMT at the time.
Mrs. Rao, I was simply
Giving an example.
given an example when people are on social media and a firefighter who was advocating for, and I'm a firefighter, EMT, that was advocating for this money as incentives for the firefighters, which they well deserve. They've never gotten anything. The ambulance corps always got some kind of stipend. The fire department hasn't. So they came to us and they needed the money. It was just simply an example when this person said, well, if you take 20 or 30,000 from the land trust, well, what difference does that make? Well, that's a difference that it can make.
Well, it keeps us our town nice, clean and fresh air, which we all want
Thank you.
here in this town, I would
Yeah.
assume. And we should keep it. We should not pollute it. with,
Thank you.
All that other stuff.
Thank you,
And
Mrs. Rao.
They are very good stewards, I would say.
Thank
Yes,
you.
they are.
And nobody's doubting that.
Exactly.
And nobody's
Keep
questioning
it
that.
that way, right?
We're going to decide, Mrs. Rao. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Rao.
Can you come up and state your name and address? Thank you.
Nicole Andrews Gavage, 69 Foster Center Road. One quick comment on the money and where it comes from. It seems like if you take some of the land conveyance tax money from the land trust, at some point, it's going to become some sort of split between, they get some of the land trust, the land conveyance tax money, and eventually come to the council with some sort of operational budget or capital costs that somehow get built into your budget. The second point, I don't know that it's going to gain much traction with the townspeople to move the land conveyance tax money from the land trust to in particular, the general fund, because it seems like that's where it would be going. without earmarking it for some specific purpose. If you look at 44-25.1, which is the land conveyance tax statute at the state level, the state is very limited in terms of what it can do with the money that it keeps from the land conveyance tax money. I believe there's something about, some portion of it goes to distressed community funds. A lot of it goes towards, either low or middle income affordable housing. And some to, other housing ventures, land to purchase for new and additional housing, especially in the, more cityscape, municipalities. But it doesn't seem like it makes much sense to take a land conveyance tax, which is specific at the state level in terms of what it can be used for, and then keep it from the land trust here and use it for some general purpose, which is not, it doesn't specify what the funds are gonna be used for, that's all.
Good point, thank you. Okay, I'm going to close, I'm sorry, one second, Mrs. Rao. Okay. Are you going to be very brief, because we've been very short, Mrs. Rao,
Yes.
very, very short.
And you all have grandchildren who want to have fresh air in this town. So
Yeah,
you have to keep it regular without all the other stuff. And those people are very good stewards of that. So
They are.
support them.
thank you, Mrs. Rao. That being said, I'm going to close the discussion on this particular topic. And what is the pleasure of the council?
If nobody else wants to speak, I will. I'm still of the opinion that we should do something with this. Whether it's, I guess it's gonna require more discussion. I don't know when we have to put an amendment forward that's gonna require the solicitor.
I can say it's like the first week of August is the absolute last
Hmm.
minute time you can get ballot questions to the state
Right.
to be put on the ballot. That is the very end, preferably before then, but
So I wouldn't even know what motion to make at this point. But my opinion is that we need to do something. Nothing against the land trust. I really value you guys and everything that you do. It's just that we're in a bind, and I think it needs to be addressed. I don't know what kind of motion to make at this point, or if we need to have another discussion to figure out exactly what we could do. If anybody wants to, or Cheryl, if you want to make a motion.
No, well, I just have something to add. After listening to that young lady in Cabbage,
Mhm.
and some points that were made. I feel the same way she does. Taking the money and putting it in the general fund is not, it's not what it was intended to do in the beginning. The land trust works very hard. I know we need money. I understand that better than most. However, I don't see taking it away from the land trust. Next year, it could be 50,000. We take 25 off of that or give them 25. After the dam, they don't even know how much exactly that's going to cost. That's going to eat into a great deal of the money that they have. We're lucky that they are so frugal and that they have saved and they'll be able to pay for it, along with the other expenses that the land trust incurs. I know this is not, I'm not making any friends up here by saying this, because I'm sure.
You're assuming.
I'm
not
guess,
assume.
I'm
not
guessing,
assume.
okay, I won't assume. But I am all in favor of keeping it where it is, how it is, and playing it out. So I would make a motion to leave the land trust as it is and not touch it.
not really something you need a motion for.
Fine,
I don't know
okay.
if that's,
Well, I don't know. I just
I
don't
think
want him
it's
to.
appropriate motion.
Well, if we don't change the charter, then there is no need.
Right.
It's
Okay,
already-
okay, so
that's, and if you guys
get
are
what you're saying.
going to vote, David, if you have genuine concerns about whether or not you need to
I'm gonna
recuse.
abstain.
until I talk to you anyway, because I don't know where this is gonna go. It just started the conversation last week.
So I'm not, because I don't think that motion is needed.
Okay, I get it. I understand.
I've been somewhat quiet, which has been, as you know, difficult for me. I've been listening to everything and some very good points are brought out. I have heard from various people, different points of view. Mrs. Ryder brings out a good point, talking about PR and hoping that the land trust. When we have our financial town meeting, and this past meeting was certainly a good example of it, the people came, the people spoke, the people voted, changed the budget. Kudos to the people who came and did that. That, whether we're happy with it or we're not happy with it, it worked, and that's what it's for. The financial town meeting is just for that, for the residents to vote. We approve a budget, we bring it forward, you get to make the choice. As far as the land trust goes, I'm also of the opinion we let the people decide. There are people that are in favor of limiting or taking some of the monies. I'm not quite sure how to phrase it in a positive light. And then there are people who say, let's just leave it the way it is. And as Mrs. Ryder pointed out, we have said for the other charter review, the charter amendments that we want to bring forward, we want to do it in a timely manner so that we can get information out to people as to why we're recommending or why this is being brought forth. That also gives a chance for any of them. For instance, one of the things we're looking at is a 4% for the capital. It's currently 2%. We would recommend 4%. Just think it's good. I'm sure there are people out there who think, no, it shouldn't be 4%. And I would encourage them to discuss it and to put information out there. That is my thought, is that it's up to the people on how to do that, just like the financial town meeting. And honestly, this last financial town meeting really sent that home, that people spoke and let us know what they wanted. So
Denise,
that's my opinion.
How would we
What-
phrase that to put that on a referendum, right?
Sharing.
It would be on the general ballot.
Well,
It has to be,
how would you phrase that? Because you have to tell them. we're
Right.
Taking 20%.
We'd have to-
Whatever.
we would have to be very specific on how much that is, and that's
They are limited to either yes or no on that.
Yes,
right, right. They would not determine how much.
Right.
That would be like,
I get that, but I'm trying.
that would
figure out how
be
we
our
phrase it.
decision
mhm,
as to if we move forward, if we decide, yes, indeed, we need to move forward with
Right.
this, we would be responsible of saying it's 25,000.
right.
It's 10%.
It's like any other ballot
whatever,
question.
right? And then we would
Yes.
have to put that forward and then let the people decide. That's my opinion.
Well, after listening to everybody, all these suggestions, all the reasons, I have changed my mind and I was on the fence, but now I'm on the, I don't want to see this procedure change.
Okay.
The
Thank
state.
Yep. And I'm not gonna discuss how I'm gonna
Yeah,
vote when I go
no,
in the
yeah,
ballot,
you-
because that's a
right.
private thing.
So Denise, we need to have another discussion on another
Yes.
meeting. Okay.
Yes.
Cheryl, did you make a motion or did you theorize what your motion would be?
She tried to, but nobody seconded.
Right,
So-
I think-
Yeah, it did. There was,
It-
there was no.
And we didn't
Just
think
with-
that,
Just for the
I
record,
withdraw my motion.
thank you.
Do it again.
I withdraw my motion.
thank you. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, Land Trust, for coming out.
Next town meeting, I like to know it ahead of time.
June 13th.
June 13th is our next town.
And that will be discussed.
It will be discussed. June 13th, 6 o'clock, right here.
Because I missed the town.
The financial town meeting, oh, that's done and gone.
I know.
You missed a good time.
I
I'll get
Thank
over there
you.
now, just to be ready.
Stop. Okay, moving on. Yes, if you want to leave, you can leave. We're not taking any vote. I promise you, I will not accept a motion at this time. We are moving on. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Linda. Thank you all.
Um,
I have. I know what it is.
I'm just gonna wait a moment for them to leave. Oh, well, I'm gonna continue. Okay, thank you.
Get the vote.
Good night, Mr. Carpenter. Moving forward,
I was good.
you were, I appreciate it. Thank you, Mike. I really do appreciate it. Moving forward, there was supposed to be an engineering board meeting tonight, but it was canceled. Their next engineering board meeting is going to be June 25th. I was hoping that 2 members would be willing to go. I have not gone in a while. I am willing to go.
I will be getting it.
Is there anybody else that, I have no problems going by myself. So is there anybody else that would like to go June 25th?
No, I think that's,
It's a Tuesday night.
Are you bringing the beer and dresser? Again?
Cape trip.
Cape trip?
When is
Okay,
it?
good for you. June 25th,
June 25th, okay.
yes,
What time?
7 o'clock.
All right, I'm going.
Okay.
Who volunteered? I missed it.
We know you did it on purpose.
Do we need a motion for that, Julia, or can we just, okay,
Yeah.
so Denise and Dave,
Oh, David and Denise, okay.
okay. Thank you. The construction permit fees were on, I believe we discussed that last time and voted on it, so I don't see
I
any for us
didn't know
to
why
move
that
on.
was on.
Need a motion, Julia?
You already voted.
We did, yeah.
Yeah, we already voted on it. I'm not quite sure why it's on again.
Yeah, I didn't,
You needed more information. You didn't.
no, we voted on it
Last
last time.
time we voted. So,
Somehow they were listening to the minutes because I asked this very question the last time, like, why is this on the agenda? They
Yeah.
already voted. And Michaela said that it was the understanding that somebody wanted an explanation because it was something
I
was
thought we had
unclear about the
explanation.
square footage and you were gonna
That
verify
was
with
the meeting
George.
before.
It was the meeting
George
before.
Presented the information that last meeting.
That's why they put it
Well,
back. Okay.
there's no
If we don't
motion
need it,
on this
I say we
discussion.
go forward.
This-
from the last, is that the last?
These minutes are from the last meeting, I think, yes, and there is no motion.
But I thought we.
We did. We did vote.
We did vote on it.
Yes, we did.
What's printed right
I don't think the
here.
minutes.
And we just approved those minutes without.
They can be reconsidered if necessary.
If we think we voted and I don't honestly remember.
I'm sure we did
I'll
vote.
put a question mark next to it and we can look at it. And put it on the June 13th if it wasn't.
You were here for that, right?
No.
We voted on it.
Yeah, we were.
Yes, because I did have a lot of questions when it came up
Second.
the first time.
Yeah.
And then the second time when we got a little more examples of exactly how right, with the formulas and examples. And then we voted, I believe it was unanimous.
Yeah, it was.
I thought so too.
I thought so too. Okay.
Okay.
All right, so we're gonna move on. We'll
Yeah.
have it on, if we look back and see that we did not vote on it. We'll move forward from there. Under new business food truck event, we have an application here for mass gathering, for the food truck. Event permit. I'm sorry, what did I?
That's good.
Food truck event permit. Looking at dates of Wednesday, June 26th and August 24th with rain dates or alternate dates of July 10th, July 17th, and August 28th. They're all Wednesdays, I believe. I believe they're all Wednesdays.
June. What would you like to see?
What is that? I know that,
What day are they?
All
They-
Wed-
are
June 26th.
June 26th and August 21st.
And the rain dates?
They're,
Sorry.
I believe they're all Wednesday.
Okay,
They are,
that's fine.
Well-
Is that what
Alright,
you're asking,
that's fine,
Chris?
yes.
I'm sorry.
they are all
Why
Wednesdays.
don't, do we?
What were
do
the,
we make a motion? Should I make a motion to accept the event calendar as presented?
No, because
We
he's
need
not
to-
looking for every single day. He's looking for two specific dates. He
and
wants
then rate.
2 dates. And he can pick 2 dates of these days, obviously with the preference of the first, first 2. But just for the record, the town clerk did receive the application on time and did receive the affidavit of notice, notarized affidavit of notice. So
Yes, that's. in
the
our packet.
requirements are met.
so I can make a motion. I'll make a motion to approve the food truck events for Wednesday, June 26, 2024, and August 21st, 2024, with rain dates or alternate dates of July 10th, 2024, July 17th, 2024, and August 28th, 2024. And those dates are all available, Sue?
Can I just? Can I just bring something
I'll
forward?
withdraw my second.
Can I just bring something forward? Tammy asked if we would consider, not accepting or not charging the event fee, $100, but it also is, the gentleman, forgot what his name is.
Eric.
Eric, I should remember that.
Yeah.
He does collect $25 per truck, is that correct?
Yes, that's, the trucks have to register.
The trucks have to register and he collects that 25.
Gets reimbursed for that. because
Right.
Some people come in, they pay their own truck. fee
Right.
Mhm.
Because they have to pay that fee, so.
Right, so I guess my question is, does he get monies for trucks coming?
For running
So-
the event,
For running the event, does he get money for that?
I-
Okay,
I thought they did.
So,
That's what
Chris withdrew his second, but I still have my motion and I'd like to add to my motion that we waive the event fee.
I would also suggest any stipulations like the normal ones where the town is listed as a interested party on the insurance on the
I,
insurance
I believe
policy.
that's included in the application, isn't it, Sue? So
All of
that's
that
already
information is
taken care of.
second,
okay, thank you. Further discussion,
We're gonna waive the event fee for this time.
that's what that was the motion. Is,
Well, my reason for that, Cheryl, is it's through recreation and it's a community event and I think it draws a lot of people in.
Yes.
it does.
Yes.
It does. They do. So that being said, any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. So next is, okay, I'm glad you're here. So Grant had reached out to me in regards to the next 2 items. The H 7981, an act relating to towns and cities zoning ordinances, and Senate 2408 act relating to cities and towns zoning ordinances, promotion of neighborhood charter. Grant, do you want to come up and give us a brief
He's up
summary?
already.
A neighborhood,
Oh.
neighborhood character
He's
and
up
smart
right
growth.
here.
Character and smart growth.
Thank you.
Yes.
Go ahead, Grant.
All right, so the first bill, House Bill 7981, this passed the House, and as of a month ago, the Rhode Island American Planning Association Legislative Chair could not find a Senate companion for this bill. There's really only,
Senator Rogers is here tonight, so I did ask for Representative Chippendale and Senator Rogers to be able to come. I know Senator Rogers is here with he's here as DPW and as senator, so I think he could speak on, once you speak on it, he can speak. But I don't think there is a related Senate on that House bill. Am I correct? Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Grant.
okay, so it might be a little bit late because the House passed this, but the concern that I had was the section titled General Provisions of the zoning ordinance currently has an option for towns to authorized development incentives such as density bonuses, additional permitted uses, or flexible design standards in basically in exchange for increased open space, increased housing choices, traffic and pedestrian improvements, public and private facilities, or any other amenities that are desired by the town that's consistent with its comprehensive plan. And the amendment in this bill requires that municipalities include all of those special provisions in exchange for density bonuses or increased permitted uses on a property for every single one of those items that I mentioned, the increased open space, the public and private facilities, traffic and pedestrian improvements. And my opinion was that this shouldn't be required of municipalities. It should remain an option. And if it was to go from a may statement to a shall statement, don't require that municipalities provide those provisions for all of those factors, such as increased open space, et cetera. It would be more appropriate, I think, to only require municipalities to provide density bonuses or a related provision for one of those options. But I think it's a bit too late to
Yeah,
do anything
so
about it.
since there's no companion bill in the Senate and it's not gonna go anywhere, we don't need to take any action on this, right?
No,
Okay.
but the reasons I had put both of these after speaking with Grant and after speaking with Representative Chippendale is just to send a letter. I wanted to do it before it got voted on.
Right.
But now it's been voted on to say we're in opposition to this. I mean, why
Exactly.
can't we get, if you're requiring, it's once again, the state mandating that we do X,
Right.
Y, and Z and not providing us with funds to do it.
So if there was a companion bill in the Senate, we could do
Could
that,
you-
but at
right.
this point,
Right.
okay.
It's a mute issue, but thank
Okay.
you, Grant, for bringing it forward. And I don't know whether sending a letter would do anything, except for, once again, we're not happy with what they did.
Mhm.
So.
Okay.
So, Grant, moving on to the Senate. And 2408, an act relating to towns and cities, zoning ordinances, promotion of neighborhood character and smart growth. And then I'll ask Senator Rogers to come up and tell him or tell us what we know, what he knows.
Okay, so this bill has been held for further study. And the concerning points in this bill, in my opinion, relate to the way that the state is going to mandate regulating non-conforming uses. So some of the more concerning points are that if a use that is not established as lawfully non-conforming has been in existence for 25 years, or an accessory use has been in existence for 50 years, without any initiation of enforcement actions to bring that use into conformance with the zoning ordinance, that would become a lawfully non-conforming use. Additionally, if the non-conforming use in question is dwelling units that were in existence either prior to January 1st of 2018, if those dwelling units have been in existence for 25 years, flat out, or if the dwelling units have been in existence for 6 years without any initiation of enforcement actions, that becomes a lawfully non-conforming use, even if it was put forward without the proper permits, et cetera. There is also a provision that non-conforming uses by dimension, if that non-conforming use by dimension was in existence prior to, again, January 1st, 2018, if the dimensional conditions were in existence for 25 years, or if the dimensional conditions were in existence for 6 years without any initiation of enforcement actions, that becomes legally non-conforming as well. That one's a little bit particularly concerning because our zoning ordinance has setbacks that relate to the rural and suburban fire safety manual. So somebody could have built a structure in a setback, and it could cause, I guess, a safety hazard, because we wouldn't be keeping things spaced out the way that our ordinances intend them to. And there is also some language about what's considered deeming abandonment of non-conforming uses. currently, if a non-conforming use is halted for a year, that's grounds for constituting abandonment. But the proposal here is that if any non-conforming use that raises pollution risk is halted for 3 years, then that's when abandonment can be presumed rather than 1 year. Maybe more, and even more of a concern, any non-conforming use that isn't an environmental concern that's halted for a period of 20 years is how abandonment gets deemed, as opposed to 1 year. So it seems that they're making abandonment more difficult to prove overall. And if this is the Neighborhood Character and Smart Growth Act, it seems that this is giving people who broke rules or didn't follow permitting processes an advantage. And it seems that it's almost promoting continuation of blighted properties. And there's something in Foster's code that says that non-conforming uses are detrimental to the surrounding area because they confer an unfair advantage for one landowner compared to others. And generally, non-conforming uses should be avoided unless there's nothing you could legally do about it. So this seems to make the character of a neighborhood potentially worse legally.
Thank you. Senator Rogers, do you have anything to add?
Senator Rogers, 61 Cucumber Hill Road. Actually, the Secretary of Municipal Housing, where this came through my committee. Senator Bell was the sponsor of this bill. Senator Bell is probably one of the most progressive people up in the Senate.
Is that Samuel Bell?
Yes.
Samuel Bell.
Thank you.
So,
I wanted to clarify.
yes, Samuel Bell. His district is Cranston Street, South Providence, Broadway. And when he was questioning, it's important that when these bills come up, I would encourage people to go on to Secretary, Rhode Island General Assembly, look at bills and put the number of the bill you want to on the bills, and it's going to show you how it travels. And I'd like you to use this one as an example. 2408 was held for study, I believe, on 5. For hearing and consideration on 5/16. Any of these bills that come in front of you from whoever presents them and tries to portray them as one thing, and they aren't. Many bills only pass one side by design. Near that, so this person who lives in South Providence can look like he's producing a progressive bill, and it will pass on one side by design to give him credibility on the street to get reelected. So when people come up here and say it's already passed one side, it's going to pass the other. Many bills only pass on one side as a political gain. This, I believe, is one of them. This bill is specific to his neighborhood. And I would encourage you to go on 5/16 on the Rhode Island General Assembly site that says watch, and actually watch this bill come up in front of committee, and you'll get a clearer picture of the intent of the bill. And I believe, if I remember correctly, because it was only a couple of weeks ago, there was an issue with the city of Providence changing zoning from 4-bed. There were units that were built to turn the century that were turned into four units. 4 instead of triple deckers, they were 4. They would have apartments up in the attic. And the cities in the town are forced to have the right to regulate their own zoning. And at some point in time, some of them were reduced to 3 units, not 4. So they weren't grandfathered in. Some of them were taken out. And this is where he's trying to do, because of a housing crisis, he's trying to allow these units back in to be used that were used in the past. And that was the intent on this bill. You have a bunch of people that have triple deckers and 4-story buildings up in North Providence and South Providence that have the ability to rent one, and they're not allowed by zoning. And that was the intent, the main purpose for this bill. They'll throw a lot of other stuff in, but I encourage you to watch that and watch the House bill, because it'll give you a clearer picture. And it's important to note what person is presenting.
So
This was
this,
not part of Shikachi's housing groups.
but
This was
this,
separate.
so this bill, which is held for further study, so it's probably not going to make it to the floor. It's not going to be voted on, not this session, right?
Senator Bell does not get many bills passed
Okay.
because of his stance.
But I mean, just when I read through it, with the, what Grant was talking about, the certain amount of time, like a 6 years, something's been in a certain use. So if somebody has been living in a barn for
Or a
6
four-story
years.
apartment that was not allowed. in
Right,
that district.
that's in his area, but if somebody was living in a barn for, and they had illegally put in electricity and a bathroom and a kitchen. And they did that after 6 years because they've been doing that illegally for 6 years. All of a
That's the
sudden
electric building.
it's legal. That's what's in that bill.
His intent was to increase housing specifically in his district, but that'll
What
carry.
would it
through the
affect?
other.
I get it. That was,
Okay,
Okay.
that.
yes.
I can
that-
give you another example on how it affects us, if I'm correct. And Kelly might know, and Sue better, but one of the problems we had on Route 6 is when people obtained property that's been vacated. As time goes by, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, property value goes down because the assessed values go down. The property is then derelict. It becomes not only an eyesore, but the town actually loses revenue as it lets these properties get further and further and further in disrepair. I think the evaluations go down, and I think therefore the taxes go down, and the properties not move. And I think the landowners do it because they want to hold the property and the buildings the way they are, as decrepit as they may be, because of future options. And they're reaping the benefit of not touching it because the tax valuation's going down.
And under this
With due
bill,
respect, the same thing can happen with a private property owner who owns a house that can't afford a $15,000 roof or a $30,000 septic system or a new shingles on the siding. So their houses start to deteriorate in serious conditions and their values will not go up as high as the next one. So that scenario can happen.
We're talking about abandoned property.
Well, for example, one across the street from you, I'm not saying the address, but
Connecticut.
somebody lived in that for years.
That guy's in Connecticut.
Yes, but that's just an example.
I
of one.
get it, you're right.
So I mean, that argument is widened, not just abandoned.
So my question, I guess, is,
Excuse me, on the House bill, that also has mandated reporting from towns if that one passes, which is an unfunded mandate. You're gonna have to report to the state on that one.
so I guess my question is, if you don't mind. Would it be, wouldn't be, but. Just to get it out there, if the council wrote a letter.
well, wouldn't
saying
we
we're
do
not
a
official
resolution?
So,
Isn't that
so
what we
the
would do
appropriate
instead
time
of-
for that would have been
Before.
prior to it comes to a hearing. So once it's held for further study, there's no more discussion on it. If it is gonna pass, which I don't think it is, the next step would be, we would see it on the agenda 48 hours ahead of time, much like yours. And it's just simply for consideration. There is no discussion at all. There's a motion to move it, and if
So it's.
right, the time
Okay.
on these are when they're going to be heard. And if I would like, sitting here as a senator, I think I've mentioned it before. They did it in Coventry and it was a very important. They haven't done it since then, but what I found very, how could I say, informative for everybody involved, especially with the state and the movement they're going. Several years ago, Coventry would have a joint meeting, whether you want to have it with the school committee like they did, the town council, and all the state representatives. In Coventry, I think there was 5 or 7 reps and 2 senators. And we sat there and the school committee would give us their wish list of what they wanted and where they wanted to go, and the council would do the same. And we would also be able to put a fingerprint on what we thought was coming down the pike in the legislature. And then they would hold a meeting just about when the bill started moving, because there's some things you don't know. I would encourage this council to actually have a meeting, even if it's just the town council with your state representatives, which in this town would just be 2, the state senator and the state rep, and do that, preferably twice, the beginning of the year. So you get goals set and you get an information on what might be the agenda push for that year. And then mid-session where you can start saying, hey, you better pay attention to this bill. We'll let you know. And then you can start sending your resolutions in support or against for them. It's very important. And the municipalities carry a lot of weight when they do that.
Question.
Yeah.
for you. So I'm thinking 5, 10, 20 years is an extreme grace period for degrading. What do you think the opinion on the street is at the house?
Well, he just said it's not gonna pass.
I
Yeah.
don't believe either one of these are gonna pass. The
Right.
ones that probably will pass are the ones that were in Shikarchi's portfolio that he handed out. Not all of them are gonna pass. Because they really didn't realize the intent. Some of the intent was clarified during public hearings. So I just want to caution this council on taking advice on bills that have not passed both sides.
Hmm.
That changing the outlook of the town on what might happen is dangerous. Again, we have supermajority. The governor can veto them. He usually doesn't,
Mhm.
but he doesn't have to sign it. If it sits on his desk for 10 days, it then becomes law.
Right. Hmm.
So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes, the open session. I'll accept the motion to go into executive session.
Okay, let me get my eyes. I didn't even bring my glasses. Are these all the same under A1? Oh, no, different.
Would these work?
Oh, they might. Okay, oh, boy. I move to go into executive closed session pursuant to Rhode Island General Laws 42-46-5 for the discussion of personnel according to Rhode Island General Laws 42-46-5A1 for discussions or work sessions regarding collective bargaining, contract negotiations, or litigation according to Rhode Island General Laws 42-46-5A2. And I believe that's it, right? Those two. Okay. Oh, and to reconvene an open session and further to keep the minutes of said meeting closed and the minutes of all executive sessions held previous to this meeting be closed and remain to provisions of the general laws of Rhode Island 42-46-4 and 5.
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My eyes are.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.